Hello and welcome into the Skraby Show for October 24th, 2025. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be with you until 7 p.m. World Series is on, which is great. We were just commenting on this in studio, but Cal and Virginia Tech are playing on ESPN right now. And Cal is putting together quite a nice season after getting destroyed by the Aztecs. Cal is 5-2, and they are winning this game right now, 13-10 before halftime. So you got to cheer for Cal a little bit to help the Aztecs with their strength of schedule, but that win is possibly going to come back and really, really help the Aztecs at the end of the year. So I don't know that I'll update you again on Cal, but if anything crazy happens, I will. The Blue Jays right now, though, are wasting opportunities, and you have to think you're not going to get many opportunities, A, against Blake Snell, B, against the Dodgers in the World Series, and C, you have to think that they're loading the bases and then having runners on this last inning, and then Ernie Clement making a mistake. So what happened was, I don't remember who was hitting for the Blue Jays. I think it was George Springer. George Springer hit a ball to first base. It was soft, and Freddie Freeman fielded it, tried to go to second to get the force out, but there was no one at second. So then he went back and looked at first, and Blake Snell was covering, but Blake Snell missed the bag with his foot. So Ernie Clement on the backside ended up going from second to third while all that was happening at first base. And Blake Snell threw a seed to third, and Max Muncy tagged out Ernie Clement. And that was a very good defensive play for Blake Snell. That is a very good defensive play for Blake Snell. He got out of that one. And I don't like it. Yeah, Trevor says, nice gun by Snell on the throw to third. All right, we'll update you on that, but if you're a Blue Jays fan, you got to feel pretty upset about what has happened so far. You've had base runners. You've been able to keep the score close, even though the Dodgers have had base runners. So you got to start taking advantage of this, Blue Jays. You got to start taking advantage of it. I was thinking about this morning driving down, though. The whole, imagining myself getting ready for a Padres World Series Game 1. And I imagined it to be awesome. And I also imagined it to be very nerve-wracking because, at this point in the season, everything is scary when you are an opposing team. And I don't know how people would handle the World Series out there, how Padres fans would handle the World Series out there, because just judging by the year alone, I don't think Padres fans could handle a World Series with stranding guys and stranding the bases loaded. Savage still in the game, but Dodgers up 1-0. We will talk about that as we go along. Sam Levitt was on this morning from 8 to 10, and he was asking a few questions. First off, he was flabbergasted by the weather, which is crazy, because he said it was like the craziest weather he's seen in San Diego. So I don't know where he's been waking up the last little bit, but he was flabbergasted by the weather. But he did ask a question that I thought was a good question, because yesterday he spent a lot of time on his show from 8 to 10 filling in for Ben and Woods. He spent a lot of time talking about Albert Pujols becoming the manager of the Padres. And he was saying, we talked forever about all the good things that would happen if Albert Pujols was the manager of the team. And we didn't really talk about much negative things about him being the manager of the team. But then he said, are we putting too many eggs in the Albert Pujols basket? Meaning, are we really just zeroing in on Albert Pujols because it's a big, fun name? Should we be possibly looking elsewhere? I know that there are people out there that are going to say, yes, we should be looking elsewhere as well as Albert Pujols. Some people probably are saying we should be looking elsewhere regardless. I don't want Albert Pujols as the manager. And I do think it's a little interesting to me because, the Albert Pujols no major league managerial experience is the catalyst of this whole thing. Either you believe that he's going to be a good manager or you don't believe he's going to be a good manager. And I don't know what will happen. I would think because of his resume of being the player that he was, it would be a good thing and he would be a good manager. But I don't know that we are open right now, or at least here on this show and on Gwyd and Chris. Like, Albert Pujols was very exciting for all of us. So is that just because of his name? Or is that because he is actually a good candidate that's looking at joining the Padres? I think it's a little bit of both. Again, I can't really say how good of a candidate he is, but I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. But I do think that the longer we go without hearing any news about managers interviewing for the job or candidates interviewing for the job, but I think we need to start looking elsewhere a little bit. As fans, I need to start looking elsewhere. I was asked earlier today, like, who else do you think could be a good candidate for the job? And honestly, I don't really know. I'm not sure what the Padres are looking for, but I would like a guy who is able to connect with the younger team and able to handle, which we have found here recently, handle some of the pressures from outside of, the field. And I do think that managers are going to start getting younger, and that's not because the older managers don't know what they're doing anymore. But I think the older managers are probably feeling like this new world of social media baseball is kind of crazy, and being criticized by 100 people on Twitter is not necessarily these guys' favorite, and they're not really some of these guys aren't getting used to it. And so again, I do think Mike Schilt made the right decision to retire because he said it was really affecting his health. But I think that the Padres are going to bring in someone that moves the needle for everyone, Padres fans, players, all of that. But I also think they're going to bring in a guy who's able to handle the pressures that come with the whole deal of being a manager in 2025, 2026, because everybody is a manager out there. Everybody is. And so you're getting criticism from everywhere. And I don't know. I know that there's an argument out there, well, they shouldn't pay attention. And I tend to agree with that. I tend to agree that they shouldn't pay attention. They should just block themselves off from everything. But I bet you some of these coaches, managers, I bet you they start reading things because it's human nature to be curious about what's being said about you. And so if you can forego looking at all of that stuff, I think you would be a better manager if you were able to just block out all of the noise. I think that people or that managers would be better by blocking out the noise because they're making decisions that they know is the right decision and that they believe is the right decision. And I'm not saying anything about what Mike Schilt did, but I would imagine that sometimes there's that little voice in the back of their head thinking, oh man, if I bring in this guy or if I do this, I am going to get crushed on social media. And I don't think that would change their decision, but I don't think they would be as convinced in their decision at the time if they're letting that sort of stuff get in from the outside. They cannot let that stuff get in from the outside. And so Pujols is a guy who's been around baseball for a really long time, obviously. He's a future Hall of Famer. He's heard, I'm sure that he heard it when he was with the Angels. He wasn't living up to his contract with the Angels. I don't think he cares about anything on the outside. I think he has learned over the years of being a player just not to pay attention to that stuff. But it's very interesting to me to see what direction the Padres go in with their manager, because it will tell a lot of us about the mindset inside the team. And I also want to know Trevor makes a good point. It's tough when you have to take media questions after every game. Yeah, and they have to do that because they are getting paid for that. That is part of their job. And I do understand that sometimes questions are asked from the media that come from social media. But I don't think that those questions, they're not like going to be reading the comments about how dumb the manager is. So I think it is a thing because they have to answer those questions. But at the same time, they're not like actually on an app or anything like that. But I am very interested to see where the Padres go with this. And I got to think too. AJ Preller is not extended, but he is with the team through his contract is through 2026. I got to think that an incoming manager would like to know who he's going to be working with. So I wonder if the team extends AJ Preller first rather than hire the manager and then extend AJ Preller, because it would be kind of a weird situation to have AJ Preller be a lame duck GM while they bring in a new manager. I said this last week, but this hire of the manager for the Padres might be the most important hiring for the Padres at the manager position. I can't say in franchise history because I wasn't around for all of it, but at least for me in the last like 20 years, this is a very important decision because the window is open for this team and for all of the the window is open for the team. But if the manager, if this hiring doesn't turn out to be the right one, then that door is going to be closing ever so slightly. And so they can't, yeah. Anyway, they can't make a mistake on this is what I wanted to say. Smash the Numbers says, just hire Albert Pujols and let's go. Okay. Smash the Numbers. If you were hiring Albert Pujols, he would be hired. But I also, the report that we talked about earlier this week about how Albert Pujols wants to bring his own pitching coach with him. Don't know if that's true at all, but it did come from, a source. And if that's true, it might cause a little friction with Ruben Niebla, who's under contract. So we'll see if that's true when everything comes down. But very, very, very slow news going for the Padres this week after having an explosive news week last week with everything that happened. The Mike Schilt retiring. Was that last week? I think that was last week. It seems like it's been forever, but this week, not so much news in regards to Padres stuff. All right. Well, thank you, Sam Levitt, for giving me that little launching off point by saying or asking, are we putting too many eggs in the Albert Pujols basket? All right. World Series is underway. I will update you on what is happening with the World Series when we get back. I have more to talk about with Tony Vitelli because he made some comments that I think are telling of who he is, but then at the same time, it's like, uh-oh. And you'll understand when I explain it. And then finally, before we end the show, Daily Gripe, obviously, there's some crazy happenings in the chess world. Yes, the chess world. Crazy happenings. And I'll share that with you later on in the show. Yeah, we're going to go to break. I'll update you on the World Series when we get back on 97.3 The Fan.
Sprouts Farmers Market.
Rod on the YouTube chat said, Matt Skraby, I sent the Apple TV guy some great food locations, including Spiro's. Thank you very much for that, Rod. If you didn't listen earlier, Andrew Weeby from Apple TV was on, and he said, DM him, Andrew_Weeby, Weibe, and DM him some places to eat in San Diego. I'm a really bad person to ask that question. Like, awful person to ask that question. I don't go out to dinner a lot. Now that I am in the dating world, yes, I am going to dinner more often, and I'm happy that I have someone who knows places to go, because I do not know where to go at all. And when people ask me, "Oh, do you have any favorite restaurants?" I always Rod said Taco Bell, and that's what I suggested earlier. Obviously, that was a joke, but if people are looking for real restaurants, I mean, I know the really expensive ones because everybody always talks about how great the restaurant is. But other than that, don't ask me for food recommendations, because it's bad. I just don't know what to say to anyone out there, because I always feel like there's a lot of pressure with making food recommendations. Like, if you tell someone who's visiting to go eat somewhere, and then they ended up not liking that food, then I've ruined their meal. So it's a pressure-packed thing, and I don't like it. Dominic says they need to ask fancy Ben Higgins for Rex. Hey, Ben Higgins probably does know a lot of places. He probably does, just because he's been around forever here in San Diego, and he just seems like that guy. He just seems like someone who would know a lot about restaurants. If you want to watch the show, you can. You can watch all of our shows on 97.3 The Fan on YouTube. Just search 97.3 The Fan on YouTube. You could also watch on Facebook, 97.3 The Fan, Twitch, 97.3 The Fan, Matt Skraby on X, and then my Skraby Show chat at The Skraby Show. Dodgers are up 2-0. End of the third inning. Vlad Jr. got on base with a single in the 5.5 hole, but Blake Snell was able to turn a double play, or get a double play turned, and the Blue Jays did not score. So down 2-0. Hopefully they can figure it out. Blake Snell's pitch count is a little bit higher. So let me go see exactly how many pitches he has, because I was just looking at it, and for someone who's been incredible in the playoffs, today is not his best day so far. Let me see. I'm going to go to the box score. We're going to see pitches. Snell has 56 pitches, 33 for strikes. So he's kind of figured out the wild factor. He's already walked 2, given up 4 hits. So I think the Blue Jays had their chances against Blake Snell early in the game, and they did not take advantage of them. So, man, that is bad. You can't do that. You can't do that in the World Series. You have to score. Okay. I don't know why, but I am really fascinated about the Giants hiring Tony Vitelli. And I learned a lot about Tony Vitelli this morning when I was reading through a bunch of different articles from the San Francisco area, because people were, trying to get to know the manager and all of that stuff. But Tony Vitelli tells the media that he had a really, really hard time leaving his job at Tennessee, but he ultimately thinks he made the right decision. And I'm not. Let me read his quote first, and then I'll comment on it. He said, quote, "It was selfish. It was personal reasons. I have always tried to be a good teammate, but I feel like I made a selfish decision that was one I needed to make. It was the right decision," end quote. So I believe that he had to make this decision. Like, I don't think there was any other decision for him. And the reason, he got that far in the process because Buster Posey knew he was interested enough for them to ask him to be the manager, and he was likely going to say yes. I'm sure that if he was not a fan of this move, that this never would have leaked, and people wouldn't have even known about it. But he did say that it was very hard for him to do this. He said that he leaned on anyone and everyone as he decided between 2 options. And he's 47 years old. So he's younger. Like I said, that's what I think the new manager is these days, is the guys who can handle the social media. But here's where it caught my eye, because Tony Vitello is entering Major League Baseball's ring, and the pressure is high. And I'm sure that he faced pressure when he was coaching Tennessee. I'm sure that he faced pressure when he was coaching Tennessee, because that's a big school, lots of crazy fans, and anything SEC is a big deal. But he said he was, when he was first publicly linked to the Giants job on a Saturday, a couple Saturdays ago, and he was identified as the favorite for the job, he was upset because he said no decision had been made at that point and was frustrated at how the hiring process played out in the media. Quote, "I did not have anything to do with that, and it put everyone in a whirlwind. Now that we look back on it, I think it was unfair. Hopefully people don't think I'm a diva, because that's kind of how it seemed to play out." Two things about that statement. Number one, if you don't think this is fair, you're in for a rude awakening, because there is going to be a lot of unfair reporting when you are the manager of the Giants. It's just a fact. You're going to face unfair reporting, and maybe not even unfair reporting, but you're going to face a lot of unfair opinions that probably are not right. But at the same time, you just have to, they're probably not right, but at the same time, they're going to cut deep. And it seems like he is not doing what I said in the last segment, which would be to block himself off from all of social media. When he says, now that we look back on it, I think it was unfair. Like, that's not up to you. That's not up to you. Like, come on. You know, the pressure is going to build when you get to the major league level. You know it. And if he, like, honestly, this is all I could think about. If he had a problem with that, what is he going to have? How is he going to handle when they've lost 8 games in a row? How is he going to handle when Rafael Devers is not playing well and he wants to go and take him out of the lineup? What's going to happen there? Like, there's going to be a lot said about you, Tony Vitello, and there's going to be a lot written about you. So you got to block it out. You really have to block it out. Now, he didn't have any professional experience as a player. He did play in college, but I also learned that he's from the St. Louis area, and I guess his family is known as St. Louis royalty, according to Giants reliever Eric Miller. And within his family, he is known as the Prince. And I don't like that either. I'm not a fan of, there's 4 kids in this family, and he's the only boy, so he has 3 older sisters. But the dad said it was always Tony gets this and Tony gets that. How come you didn't discipline him, but you disciplined us? Tony was the first one to get a car. There was always a lot of competition, and he was a bit of a bleep disturber. He managed to get his sisters in trouble all the time. He just kind of sneak away. That was part of his personality. The bottom line is he doesn't take himself too seriously. Okay, well, that's great. But I can't say that this is going to translate into his managerial career, but I can't say that I would be excited about a guy who is known as the Prince in his family. It tells me one thing, and this is all speculation. This is all me being crazy, but it tells me that he has gotten his way, and things aren't always going to go your way as a major league manager. And all of his sisters were angry that he got a car first. He was a bleep disturber. He got them in trouble all the time. And it sounds like, yeah, he doesn't take himself too seriously. But at the same time, it sounds like he doesn't really take anything seriously. This article from the San Francisco, where is it from? It's from San Francisco Chronicle by Susan Slusser. She's a Giants reporter. She wrote this article, and it is not flattering for me at all. Or not for me, but it's not flattering of Tony Vitello. It tells me, like, you keep reading and you keep reading about how he had so many hijinks. Here's a part of it. He even popped on video during Tennessee football games 2 weeks in a row, his hijinks on the sideline went viral, first catching an errant pass and sprinting away with the ball, and the next game getting into a 3-point stance and charging Tennessee's linebackers coach before the game. That's all good and fun. But things are about to get real. Things are about to get real. And when you're named the Prince, I feel like that's just going to go bad. Ran out of thoughts on that one, but I don't know why I felt that way when I read that article, but if everybody goes and reads this article, I think you're going to feel the same way. You're going to be like, was this an article to prove that he's a good coach or to prove that he's just a jokester? I mean, obviously he has to be a good coach because he did a lot with Tennessee. So I'm not saying that he didn't do a lot, but it was not flattering to say the least. I didn't even look up at the World Series, see what happened. I saw, well, they're in commercial, so that means the inning is over, but I'm not sure what is happening. So I'll have to update you when I get back. I have my Halloween movie, and I also have a Daily Gripe. And when we get back, we're going to talk about the crazy chess story. I mean, it's sad, but it is crazy. And chess is literally like in crisis right now. So we'll talk about that when we get back here on the Skraby Show on 97.3 The Fan.
Quinn and Chris.
Final segment of the week for 97.3 The Fan. I'm Matt Skraby. Thank you for listening and being a part of this. I know it's Friday night. I know people are out and about. So if you are listening, or if you're going somewhere, if you're going to a restaurant, hopefully it was a good recommendation. I spoke too soon about Blake Snell and the Blue Jays. They have taken advantage of Blake Snell not being the Blake Snell we have seen so far in the playoffs. Dalton Varsho hits a 2-run home run here in the bottom of the fourth. He ties it up. Alejandro Kirk, Tijuana's own, went deep to right field. I thought it was going to be a home run, but it actually bounced off the wall. He only had a really, really long single. So it's bottom of the fourth. Game is tied right now. Blake Snell, 72 pitches. Jimenez up for the Blue Jays. But baseball is just so funny. You could have runners on every single inning and you won't score. And then you can get one guy on and then a home run and you're tied up. It is crazy. It is crazy. And now that, the Padres have been eliminated from the playoffs, I started paying attention to other teams because it does feel like when you're cheering for your team, it does feel like they're the only team that is doing that. They're the only team that is loading the bases and not able to drive anyone in. And it's not true because I watched the Brewers do it a bunch. And I just watched the Blue Jays do it as well. So other teams do it. It just feels really terrible when your team does it, especially in big situations, because obviously those are the worst situations to have bad things happen. Let's see. Dominic says, I'm happy, but in the back of my mind, I'm preparing for the Doyers to drop a 5 spot in the 7th. Hope I'm wrong. I hope you're wrong too. Yes. I was looking for more comments. All right, let's get into this chess. Because, yes, we're talking chess here on the Skraby Show. And again, this is a serious story, so I don't want to make light of it. But this has taken over the chess world, this story. And it all has to do with the death of U.S. chess superstar Daniel Naroditsky. And people are saying that someone else in the chess world was bullying him and ended up leading to they haven't really given an exact manner of death, but there are people saying that it was suicide. So they're saying that Vladimir Kramnik, who is 50, they're saying that he bullied Naroditsky so bad to the point where Naroditsky took his own life, which is unfortunately very, very, very sad. But here's why everybody is freaking out about this story. And it's because the guy who has been bullying him online, and the reason he was bullying him online, but he basically accused Naroditsky of cheating while he was playing online, and there was no basis for those accusations at all. And if you know anything about the chess world, people are very, very serious about their chess, especially at the top. And so he made these baseless accusations, and now Vladimir Kramnik is saying that he's receiving death threats and he is the victim. And he told News that he was willing to talk to police in Charlotte, but warned that he will bring legal action against others in the game who have blamed his campaign against Naroditsky for leading to the death. Kramnik said he has tried to contact chess world authorities because now they're looking into this bullying thing. And he did say the death was tragic, but he warned the 50-year-old Kramsky there would be legal consequences for everyone who says he's responsible for it. He said, what is happening now is unfortunately a continuation of very, very dirty PR campaign, which I started to be a target for already 2 years. I had much more severe attacks, death threats from my family as well, on top of permanent, continuous defamation publications and, well, just insults. I have received over the last 2 days dozens of direct threats, death threats. Kramnik said he was planning to go to police in Switzerland to start a criminal case against those in the world of chess who have blamed him for Naroditsky's death. But he basically, I know I'm throwing a lot out there. Basically, he accused this kid Naroditsky of cheating online chess. And everybody out there says this is not true. And so Naroditsky starts getting messages about how he's a cheater. And then the 50-year-old Kramsky is trying to push these theories out there that he is a cheater when no one has any proof that Naroditsky cheated. But what I'm really kind of grossed out by is the turning of it onto himself. And I'm talking about Kramnik. He's saying that he's the victim here. And in a world where someone ends up taking their life because of online bullying, and in a world where you push, according to the industry, baseless claims about Naroditsky cheating, you have to take some sort of, maybe not responsibility, but you have to at least point one finger at yourself, right? You have to. And they call them grandmasters in chess. Those are the very best ones. There are other grandmasters out there that are saying that he should be banned from playing chess professionally ever again, Kramnik, because he has, quote, according to Grandmaster Nihal Sarin, kind of literally taken a life. And then to kind of wrap it all up, Kramnik, I'm sorry, I keep calling him Kramsky. Kramnik said that he is the victim and he was the only one trying to help Naroditsky. And then he added this, quote, maybe he is under some substances, but something was clearly wrong with him. Very, very wrong. And nobody did anything. And now they're blaming me, who was the only one trying to tell police friends, people who are close, come and do something about it. That's all I'm going to say about this, because it's kind of making me more sad as I'm going through, but it doesn't, the chess world doesn't need this bad publicity right now. But to call yourself a victim and to accuse him of being on drugs and all this other stuff is very, very hollow to me. And a life was lost, and you kind of have to take a step back sometimes and realize that maybe this whole thing is a little bit bigger than whatever I got going on in my head. So there's the major news in the chess world. And again, it's sad news, but I should move on from that story because it made me more sad as I was going along. When I was reading it earlier, it wasn't as, it was sad, but I didn't feel like I would feel as sad as I did. So, you learn things. Freddie Freeman almost got hit by a pitch, but he didn't. Fluharty. See, this is why I have not paid much attention to the Blue Jays all season long. I know some of their players, but they have a pitcher Fluharty in now. I've never heard of Fluharty before. Giants. We're gonna go into some potpourri of sports, but the Giants, New York Giants, that is, they have been handed down fines for when they tried to get into the blue tent during the Thursday night football game a couple weeks ago when Jackson Dart was being checked for a concussion. The Giants team themselves were fined $200,000 for violating the protocol. And Dable was fined $100,000 and Skraby was fined $15,000. And now they're saying that they don't think that those two guys going into the blue medical tent had any impact on the concussion review that was going on. The concussion the concussion. They're saying that they didn't have any impact on that, and I kind of believe that. But I also think they needed to maybe give Dable a 1-game suspension, because I know that Brian Dable knows exactly what he did. And I know that he knows what he did was wrong because he said it as much. But this is a very big deal. And that's why the NFL took such swift action. And that's why the NFL deserved, or that's why the NFL wanted to make sure that the rest of the league knew, hey, if you go anywhere near that blue tent, we're going to come after you and you are going to lose a lot of money. So in that regard, I think it is a good notice for the rest of the league to know that they do take these things very seriously. I mean, I had never seen it before. I had never seen a coach go into the blue medical tent during a game before. So that was kind of crazy. And I wasn't alone when I figured out, hey, this doesn't happen that often. But, I think they did what they needed to do. Would have liked a 1-game suspension for Dable just to really rub it in. But I think they did what they needed to do. Padres over everyone says, love you, Skraby, but this is really the last thing I want to hear about before entering the weekend. We're talking about the story about the chess. You're right. I probably should have just left that on the cutting room floor. I didn't realize that it was going to be as sad as it ended up being. So I'm sorry to everyone out there, and I'm sorry to you, Padres over everyone. We talked about this before. Tony and Chris left the studio, but the MLBPA executive director Tony Clark said that there's going to be a lot of work to be done by Major League Baseball in the wake of the NBA scandal this week. And Clark said that basically what it all boils down to is that in this next collective bargaining agreement that they're going to have to hammer out after the 2026 season, there's going to be a lot of talk about sports betting in this collective bargaining agreement. I don't really know what kind of talk there's going to be, but I do know that if the league is going to make a ton of money off of sports betting, and sports betting comes down to the players actually, accomplishing a stat or not, or a prop bet or not. And I think that the players are going to want maybe a piece of that pie. They're definitely going to want some sort of protection against, being monitored by authorities. I mean, but if you're at that point, by being monitored by authorities, then you've probably been doing it wrong for a while. But this is going to be something that I think is not going to be good for our whole collective bargaining agreement conversation. I don't think it's going to be good. Tony Clark also says, yep, we don't want salary caps. And so the owners want salary caps. I remember last time this whole CBA thing went down, it pushed back games. They had to end up playing some doubleheaders during the season. I hope this doesn't happen again. I hope that we're not dealing with this again, but I have a feeling this is going to get ugly. And I have a feeling that players are not going to back down because they kind of do have more power than ever. Now, once they start missing out on paychecks, I think that will help some of those guys get over the feeling of being taken advantage of, but I don't know. This is going to be ugly. I think it's going to be ugly. Rod said, how's your fantasy football team doing against Sam Levitt, Matt Skraby? I already played. Well, oh, I see what you're saying. How is it doing against Sam? Well, I did beat Sam the other week, so I definitely lead in that regard. But if I'm going to my standings, I am in the Odyssey League. I'm 5-2. Sammy Lev is 4-3. Tony's 4-3. Let's see, where's Chris? Chris is 4-3. So the top teams are 5-2. But let me see what happened when I played Sam, because I think I destroyed him. The Sammy Lev squad. I beat him 141-122. Last week in this work league, I scored 169 points. and I beat someone by 67 points. So that was fun. That was a good time. The other league I have with my friends, I'm 4-3. I've lost some pretty close games. It's been pretty terrible to deal with. All right, my Halloween recommendation. It's a brand new movie, and I actually just watched it last night. And it says it's a horror movie or a thriller. I don't get that feeling, but The Long Walk is a very interesting movie. It's about a bunch of people who sign up for this walk, and they basically just walk until they are the last one standing. And if you don't get keep pace, if you don't do certain things, I'm trying not to give away the movie, then very bad things happen to you. And this is a Stephen King story. So The Long Walk is something that I thought was pretty fun.
What's annoying Skraby today? Let's find out. It's time for the Daily Gripe.
Renee says Sinister for a scary movie. That is a very scary movie. Also Conjuring. I like some of the Conjuring movies. Some of them are bad, but most of them are pretty good. So those are also good categories or good movies to watch for Halloween as well. All right, my Daily Gripe. You guys heard it earlier. It took me over an hour and 15 minutes to get here from my house in Encinitas area. And that is ridiculous because it should usually take me about 35. It should take me about 35 minutes. But here's my Daily Gripe. All those people that slow down traffic for no reason. My phone told me it was a plus 30-minute delay. And I was like, this is probably a terrible accident. I hope everybody's okay. And then I drive by where the traffic was starting to pick up, and it was a stalled semi on the side of the road. Now, maybe they had to get the semi over to the side of the road. But at the time I was going by, I mean, why are you looking at a stalled semi? Why? I don't get the rubberneckers. I don't get it. It just makes everybody else slow down. And I was fired up because I was so late today that Tony had to text to make sure I was okay because he always sees me there before him. It's really, really annoying. All right, have a good weekend, everybody. Go Blue Jays.